everyone, and welcome to the first Coldcast of 2024. I'm your host, Dr. Anna Johnson. I'm Vice President of Marketing and Corporate Development here at United States Cold Storage, and we have a very special guest in the Coldcast room today. It's Mr. Mickey Hoffmann. He's
Hello,
my
Anna.
boss and also my good friend, and he is the newly appointed Executive Vice President of Commercial Strategy and Development. So today we're going to chat with Mickey about all things strategy, kind of a recap of 2023 and what we see on the horizon for 2024. So let's talk about 2023 because it was a really busy year.
Very busy year.
What did we do in 2023?
So 2023 was a great year. Performance-wise, we had a much better year than 22. I think a lot of that was staffing stability. If you recall, like early 22, mid 22 was when we had a lot of staffing challenges across company operationally, and we had to make a lot of adjustments there. We adjusted some performance challenges that we had at the sites. We worked with some customers on some I would say metrics and those types of things with them to kind of work through it. We've did a lot of recruiting, a lot of retention programs. We're doing tons of training now. So we did a lot of things to help not only recruit the staffing, but retain the staffing. And our turnover numbers are almost back to what they were, I would say, pre-COVID.
Okay, so we stabilized that labor force.
Yeah, and that was so important. I mean, it wasn't just us. It was all over the industry. It was our manufacturers. It was everywhere. You saw it in fast food when you went to a restaurant. If you remember the days where, you couldn't sit in certain parts of the restaurant because they didn't have staff to seat you. And, coming out of COVID, everybody wanted to go out to the restaurants. And what happened was the restaurants didn't have the staffing or capabilities to handle all of us that wanted to go out again. So, I think staffing stability was a big part of that. Also in 23, we had a lot of projects kind of, I would say, launch. We've got a lot of construction going on in 2024, and a lot of those projects were launched in 23. So I think coming out of 22, those staffing challenges, and if you remember, our manufacturers were just making product like crazy. Coming out of COVID, they had labor shortages. Then after the labor shortages, they had staffing. Then they had raw material challenges. So they couldn't produce enough product for the consumer demand. So they reacted. Some may say a little overreacted, depending which of our customers you talk to. But that manufacturing was just going on and on and on, and we couldn't handle that capacity, right? And we had several conversations with customers internally. You and I have talked about this a lot. What's going to happen? And what had happened is I think the customers realized that, we got to stabilize back to where, I keep saying stabilize a lot, back to where we were prior to COVID. And that helped our capacity. So, I would say the three things were staffing stabilization, product launches, and then with working with customers to help stabilize capacity needs and those types of things.
So I guess if I could summarize, 2023 was kind of almost like a rebalancing act.
Absolutely.
Where we talked about capacity, forecast. They were kind of smoothing all of that out. So I know we hosted the customer advisory board, and so for those customers who didn't participate, what were some things that you learned in that customer advisory board?
So we talked a lot about what their needs are now. We had the customer advisory board right after COVID. So all their concerns were post COVID concerns with the staffing, the capacity, and those types of things. It seems a little bit more stable now. What their needs are. I think that they want partners that they can work with relationships, those types of things. Open communication. There was a lot of talk about different metrics. How can we measure things? How can we measure things properly so they can do proper forecasting and projection planning and those types of things. So
it seems like it's a little bit back to basics.
Right.
Like,
That's
hey,
this
was kind of chaos, and there was a lot of demand, uncertainty, and now I think they have a better picture, and they're looking at ways how they can be more cost focused or drive some cost out of it.
The other thing they're kind of going back to. I mean, if you remember post-COVID again. SKU rationalization.
Yes.
It's like they're having additional SKUs coming online now. We're not seeing that SKU rationalization. I don't know whether that's because of consumer demand. Consumer demand's flattening. So maybe if they bring additional SKUs to the market, maybe then they'll see that consumer demand start to increase. But,
So what are the U.S. cold priorities for 2024?
I would say first and foremost is focus on these projects that we have going on. We have an expansion opening up in Lake City, Florida, mid-year this year. That's a VNA, a turret truck, a very narrow aisle expansion that we're doing there. That'll be U.S. Cold Storage's first expansion that has very narrow aisle. So that'll be a big focus.
That's exciting.
Yeah, we're very excited about that.
What does VNA get us that a conventional warehouse does not get us?
It's not what it gets us. What it gets the employees. It gets the employees outside of the box. Right. I mean, when you think about cold storage and working in a cold storage warehouse, what's the one thing? You and I tour the warehouses.
I don't like to be cold.
We do not
like to be cold.
We do not like to. Anna doesn't even like to be cold in the office,
no,
to
I
be
do
honest.
Not.
She goes in all the offices
I'm not
around
wearing
here.
a sweatshirt right now, but
she
usually
pumps it up to 85 degrees in the office. And I know when Anna's around because I just looked at the thermostat. But yeah, I mean, it's getting employees outside of the box, right? And it's getting them doing skill sets that we didn't have before. You know, instead of just driving a forklift, they're driving a very narrow aisle. They're inside a heated cab, which is really, really nice.
But we're getting more density out of the expansion as opposed to a conventional one, right?
Yeah,
because
density as well.
Yep. So you're getting more pallet positions for roughly the same amount of space.
Yeah, good point. Yeah. Aisles, like a conventional aisle is about 10 feet. I think a VNA aisle, it might be like 6 feet wide. So absolutely.
So I think you're getting more space and you're able to service those customers better.
And I mean, again, when we talk about staffing stability, it's important to make sure that we're taking care of the staff and retaining that labor, because that's the best way to service the customer.
So we're starting. So that Lake City build will be done in 2024.
That will be done in 2024,
Okay.
Summer 2024.
Okay, great.
Yep.
All right, what else do we have going on?
We have a Phase 1 expansion going on in Lowell, Indiana, which is about 50 miles east of our Wilmington site. It's just the northwestern corner of Indiana. That's another automated facility. That one is going to be what we're calling multifarious. Which basically means a portion of it is going to be your traditional ASRS automated storage and retrieval system, but then there's also going to be an area of the facility that is the VNA.
Okay, why is it important for us to focus on automation?
Density, as you were talking about, but more importantly, labor risk.
Okay.
So I think it was a real eye-opener for us, back in 22 when we had all of those labor challenges, that, labor is
it's expensive.
It's expensive. It's unpredictable. Not saying that automated systems aren't unpredictable. They have their challenges as well. But you kind of have to figure out what is better with the two. So you get an automated system works 24 hours a day. They don't take breaks. They actually are a little bit slower, believe it or not. But when you're working 24/7 and not taking breaks in those things, it's a more efficient facility. So labor risk, density, and footprint too.
Are there certain customers or certain profiles that lend themselves better to automation than other customers?
A little bit. I would say, and all these automated warehouses, we're also doing layer picking, which we're also doing some of our conventional warehouses where we're retrofitting to do additional layer picking. So we are seeing more and more, when we did some studies to look at, case pick and, how customers order. We have noticed that, without even asking them, we're seeing that a lot of their case pick is in layers. Okay. So, automation is helping with that. Depending on the type of automation system, full pallet obviously is great for automated system, because when you bring in the complexity of loose case picking, where do you do that loose case picking? Do you do it up on a mezzanine? Do you do it in an aisle? Then you do have manual labor inside the box then. So it's different models for different customers.
Is there anything that you can tell, the listeners here how they should think about automation when they come in a third-party warehouse? Like, is there anything they can prepare ahead of time so that they're ready for this automation?
Have conversations with their customers about ordering in layers.
Yep.
Another challenge of ours is non-full layers at the top level, which is a challenge. So if we receive a pallet that doesn't have a full layer on the top of the pallet, you can't put it in the layer picker, so you manually would have to clear those cases off. So end of the line manufacturing, if it's a full pallet, that is helpful. I would say pallet quality. We do use pallet support boards in all our automated systems, but pallet quality is important. You get splintering, or you get pallet pieces around an automated warehouse. You have to clean those things up, and they can present challenges in the system. Then also stability of pallets, preferably no leaning, make sure when you do a stretch wrap pallet that it's, stretch wrapped.
The packaging is important too around the boxes and things like that.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. So those are the things that you want to think about.
But you should really ask your third-party logistics provider what their thoughts are on automation, because it does make a huge difference, and it does take longer to build, but you get a much more consistent operation outside of it that you should really consider it.
And ask them why they're doing it too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're just building automation because everybody is building automation, you need to have a strategy behind why you want to build automation. They're much more expensive than a conventional warehouse, so you have to look at what your returns are, what the labor market is, how much square foot do you have to build on. So there's a lot to consider when you're building an automated versus conventional.
And as you are as you're trying to justify those projects, you also this is our third ASRS building, first BNA. So we're trying to get experience in all of those applications so that we can be ready when the next opportunity presents itself.
Absolutely.
Yep. So let's talk a little bit about transportation and logistics.
Okay.
So what's new in transportation and logistics?
Well, transportation and logistics, as we know, is a roller coaster ride, right? You either have a really great year or a down year.
Yeah.
Right now we're in that down year. The market is soft. So what you'll see is, the customers aren't going to come running to us with transportation needs, because there's a lot of capacity in the transportation market, so they can just pretty much call somebody up, get a very reasonably priced line haul rate, and they'll have that product picked up.
How long is that softening of the transportation market been going on?
I'd say about a year now.
Okay.
Like early 22, it was still pretty strong coming into the end of, I'm sorry, not 22, 23.
Okay.
Early 23 was pretty strong coming into the later part of 23. I think it was softening a bit, and now we're still seeing that softening. And, you try to work with our customers on our consolidated programs. And, it's not always about, the cost of the line haul. When we talk about our cold share consolidation program, it's about getting trucks off the road, right? If we can consolidate 3 trucks that are picking up in our warehouse into 1 truck picking up in our warehouse, that's 1 appointment for our warehouse. That's 1 truck that's on the road. I mean, you can talk to Sarah. I think you're going to have another cold cast with Sarah, and talk to Sarah about what the sustainable.
Because that's extremely important to us and to our parent company, Swire. All right, so we launched Lowell. We have broken ground on Lake City. Where else are we going?
We have broken ground in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. We have a ASRS site that's opening up in Bethlehem. See, that the challenge, but you have an ASRS site, it's about 2 years construction.
Right.
We're saying our VNAs are 18 months. The conventional is probably 12 months.
Right.
And it could even be, if it's an expansion versus a phase 1,
Yeah.
it could even be as quickly as 10 months. So this expansion in Bethlehem will be about 2 years
Okay.
from groundbreaking. So we're probably looking at mid 26 for opening that space. Been in conversations with a lot of customers there. We have Lowell. We have an expansion coming on in Lebanon, where we're going to be working with one of our big customers, a manufacturer, that we're going to be doing a plant attached there. That's exciting. And then we have a facility opening up in Tulare, California, our Tulare North site. Will be opening up at the end of this year. Where we did all this. I'm telling you how great automation is. But
and now we're doing conventional.
And then we're doing a conventional component of that, right?
Yeah,
so there is, and that's because speed to market, right? When your customers have needs and they need speed to a certain market, you have to consider conventional. So we're doing one room as a conventional room, but then the larger portion of the expansion will be V&A.
And so a lot of these projects are expansions, and they're driven by customer needs. Can you talk a little bit about the capacity in the market and just in general what's going on?
So I think we're at just about 4 billion cubic feet of PRW space in the U.S. market right now. And actually, Anna and I say Anna's working diligently on our strategy. We're going to be meeting with our board of directors here in a couple weeks to talk about strategy. So Anna and I have been looking at this a lot. And we look at the growth in the public refrigerated industry regularly. And what Anna and I noticed that, like, traditionally, the market grew at like 2.5% to 3% CAGR. But over the past, what we're looking at, like 2018, 2019, through what we expect coming on through 25, just based on press releases and things that we see in the market, it looks like it's a CAGR of 4.8.
Yeah.
I don't think that it's going to continue to grow at a 4.8. We've been doing this a long time, you and I. And, typically our market grows at population growth. So I'm expecting it to continue to grow. This big blip that's going on is a couple different things, with Americold and Lineage building a little bit, but we've got a lot of new entrants coming into the PRW market.
And how do we think about those new entrants?
We categorize them in a few different buckets. So we've got most of them are driven by private equity. So coming out of 22, I'd say, early 22, money was fairly inexpensive. There was a lot of awareness of the cold storage industry. So these private equity investors took note of our market and have been investing in our market. So the first bucket we have is speculative building. So it's private equity working with developers on a speculative building. What we're seeing is it's a building it's built for tenants. It's not there's several offices. There's its capability to room it off into certain components. So you see your speculative.
If you asked me 5 years, I would have never believed that somebody would build spec.
Absolutely.
It's
we always used to talk about
it's
that.
So expensive, and it was, unless you have an anchor tenant, it's really hard to fill that space.
And they've been building spec in the ambient world for years and years and years, and maybe we were fools to think that they wouldn't build spec, because, and we always said, well, it's the premium in the cost of it, and it's also, when you private equity, they want to get their money quick. So when you build a speculative dry building, they can put that thing up. What is it? Four tilt-up walls and a roof, and then boom, you've got a building. And then that private equity is starting to get their cash flow. Where it takes a little bit more time to build a cold storage warehouse, so they're not getting their cash flow in as timely manner as they would on the ambient side. So then the other thing we're seeing is like private equity investing in kind of what we're thinking are traditional operators. So these are individuals that are leading these companies who have been in the industry for a long time. either have retired or part of
They've
an
moved on,
acquisition
yep.
from a Lineage or a Maricold or something like that, and are entering the market. So I think that they will continue to operate the facilities. I'm interested to see kind of how their pricing, works out, because, when working with private equity, they want a certain, cap rate return.
Yep.
Even you and I were working with some of these guys, and we were looking at potentially leasing. The lease rates seem a little bit higher, so it'll be interesting to see how what we would be calling the operators in the industry. And then what we always talk about is, are they doing it and getting business and filling up the warehouse in hopes that maybe a Lineage or Maricold will come along,
right,
and there may be some type of acquisition. But a lot of that private equity and speculative building and these operators are really coming on in this year, in 2024, right, yep. And then some's even coming on in 2025. You see some of these guys that the new entrants that are currently operating now are probably operating acquisition buildings, so facilities that they acquired, not that they have built. There are some that were built that have begun operating probably early to mid part of this year, but you see a lot of them are probably acquisition. So I guess we're still not sure how it's going to shake out. But I wish them well. What were we talking about? The middle layer?
Yeah, the middle market.
The middle market layer, where, when Lineage started, it was 11 or 12 years ago, they acquired a lot of that middle market. And this is, we were chatting with some people about that. Is this the reestablishment of the middle market in the PRW? Because you and I did a little speculative look at what the market's going to look like in 5 years, and there's some name on everybody's have seen that the GCCA top 10 list, and the one that we threw together, there's some interesting names on that list that we wouldn't have seen there before.
Right. It's always changing. I mean, if you look at the top 10 list from last year to this year, there are a lot of names that have just kind of fallen off of there because other people have added capacity. And our capacity, the market has been at capacity, and there's just not a lot of space out there. So these new competitors, I'm interested to see when they come along, are people going to take that space, or is it's hard to switch? There's some switching costs that are involved, so it'll be a little bit different.
Yeah. So maybe when there is mid to over capacity, are you going to see some of these larger programs move from the big three to some of these new entrants? I mean, and that's interesting. Some customers I've talked to is like, the jury's still out on how good of an operator, that they're going to be. And of course, they're names that we all know, so you assume that they're going to be good operators because they were good operators in their previous lives. So, and I wish them well. I mean, it's always good to have competition out there, and you want good competition. We want our customers to come to our industry to do warehousing and logistics and storage for them.
And it gives us the opportunity to have some comparison to say, how best are we? Are we really the best in coal?
Right.
And I think it just confirms that as we go forward. So it is good to have some comparison. So where do you think we're going to be in 10 to 15 years? I mean, you'll be retired, but
I said I'm still deciding whether it's Florida or Arizona.
2030. That's our plan towards.
I already got it.
Yep.
I don't think that we're going to be much bigger than the. I think there's going to be a lot of ups and downs in the next 10 to 15 years, as there were the last 10 to 15 years. Remember the recession of 7, 8, 9. Yep. That's going to happen. I mean, we're lucky enough that we're in an industry that we say is recession proof, but we saw that there was low capacity in the market during that time, because something's going to fall off.
Right.
Maybe the big brand manufacturers are going to sell less, and they're going to go more to private label. Food service, you would imagine, was decline, right? People aren't going to go to restaurants. So I think we're still going to have our ups and downs. I think there's going to be a lot more automation in the market. I think the commodity guys probably are still going to store in the older facilities, right? It doesn't turn much.
Right.
You don't need all the fancy automation and those types of things for commodity storage and raw materials and those types of things. So, I mean, it's not a very sexy answer, I guess, but I don't think that we're going to be much different than we were now than we were 10 years ago. So.
I mean, I think the difference is we're really preparing kind of the network of the future. So we're putting in place automation, some innovation around technology and visibility so that we can best service our customers no matter what they want to be. Because I think we learned through COVID, we have to be flexible and we have to be adaptable. We got to be able to change.
Absolutely.
We've got to be able to say yes to all these customers because, if consumer demand patterns change, if the way that we consume food or deliver food changes, we've got to be able to make that flexible. And we can't get locked into these massive buildings with all this technology and then not be able to flex. So I think that's why we always have to be mindful that we're really trying to prep this network of the future. And it has to be data-driven. We have to give customers data so they can make good decisions.
That's a good point. I think that is one thing that I think is going to change a lot going for 10 to 15 years. There's got a lot more data-driven decisions, predictability, analysis, and those types of things because one of the biggest challenges, and it's not only for us, it's for our customers too, is that planning, right?
Yes.
That projection planning on, what does your inventory look next year? What growth rates are you really going to see? How much capacity do I need in the market? How many outbound orders and those types of things? I think that data-driven decision making and AI, man, everybody, the AI, it's what everybody's throwing out there, but I think it's gonna make a big difference in helping us predict. So maybe that leans the market.
Oh, it could,
right?
Or it could smooth out a lot of that volatility that we were kind of expecting. It could actually smooth that out and make it a little bit easier to get appointments or to be able to flex. I know we heard from customers that they want communication and they want data because they can help us.
Right.
Adjust and flex capacity if they knew what was coming. So I think that's going to be something that'll be helpful in the future is, hey, we can all work together to be able to kind of, tamp down those demand spikes and then smooth out volatility. Which,
may be less growth.
Right.
Maybe if we're making better decisions, maybe we're operating at 90+% occupancy across the industry instead of at 80, 70 to 80%. So, maybe that decision making assisted by AI or algos or whatever, it
more
is.
Density.
Yeah. So then maybe growth will slow down a little bit. And it's probably good because it's just getting more and more expensive to build these buildings.
That's true. Yep. Well, and so, back to the customer, what's your vision for customer service with U.S. Cold?
So at U.S. Cold, we have our customer experience group, and the purpose of that group is to assist our facilities with national accounts, right? How can someone here, a young, supply chain major or whatever that's coming into our market help our facilities kind of maintain that customer service, and it gives
and that relationship,
you're right, and develop that relationship at that level. So our customers have many levels. You have the day-to-day person; it makes it easier for them. But I think it is about relationships. I think we really have to focus on relationships more. Going out and meeting the customers, right? People are traveling now. You got to go out. You got to get in front of them. Start talking about the things you and I were just saying. That those data-driven decisions. Looking at metrics. What metrics do you want? We're in the process of redesigning our web portal. We had a lot of conversations with customers on, what can we provide to you? How can our web portal provide you with information to help you make decisions day to day, month to month, year to year?
And they have to be comfortable because when it boils down to it, we're not the ones whose name is on the brand. But everything that we do reflects that brand. So, they have to trust us that we're going to keep their products safe, that we're going to make the best decisions, and that we're giving them, an equitable cost that they can make money on. So I think it's really trust, and I think that's where customer service comes in. It's like you have to establish, you have to get them in the door, then you have to establish trust, and then you have to build this relationship.
Yeah, and when you build that relationship just with a person, right? So you have that relationship built at the customer experience level, then you have that relationship built at the business development level. And working with that same person consistently, and continuing to develop that relationship. There's changes with our customers on who we work with from day to day, year to year. So continuing to develop that relationship at all levels, even up to the leadership at our customers.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it's really just meeting them where they are and making sure that that if they have any issues, concerns, success, that we celebrate all of those together.
And what's always important to me is when we talk with Dave Carr, that leads our business development group, is when we go out and we do business reviews, it's important to bring our warehouse managers to those business reviews as well, right? It shouldn't just be a business development person and customer experience person, because they need to develop the relationships. They talk to them, weekly or whatever, but when you get in front of them and you have a meeting, or you go out and have a dinner with them, that relationship develops so much better, and there's that transparency and openness.
And they think about just running the warehouse, but we also want them to think about, how do we run the business? How do we think about that business?
And vice versa. We think about how to run the business. Sometimes we don't think about how you run the warehouse. Right, they bring great ideas and a different look at when we have these business reviews. And the other thing, it brings that warehouse manager that has the customer A here, and the warehouse manager that also has customer A together, and they collaborate at these business reviews with the customers. So I think that's also an important thing that we really need to focus on. In business reviews coming this year.
So for our listeners out there, what is one takeaway we can think about for 2024?
One takeaway we can think about.
What's just one thing you want everyone to be aware of for 2024 in United States Cold Storage?
We've got a lot of space coming on. So, we want to develop those relationships. The other thing is, I said, we talked about cold share, the opportunities with cold share. There's tons and tons of opportunity there, and numerous benefits, not only, financial benefit, environmental benefit, efficiencies, it gains in the warehouses, efficiency, it gains for the customers. A lot of times customers are probably building their own consolidated loads where maybe it's a multi-stop. Right? Maybe they're doing a 5-stop. They think they're consolidating their load, but they're doing 5 stops, where if we consolidated that with, our consolidation program, that might be a 1-stop. Right?
I mean, I think with all this space coming on, we have our transportation services. I think for 2024, as a customer, you should be thinking about what you're going to do next. We have this new space. How are we going to use this space? How are you going to think about transportation and prepare for that?
Right.
Because you never know when you're going to need. You never know when you're going to need that to cover a load, plan for transportation. You're going to be out of space somewhere. So during 2024, I think just be planful. And just think about that and prepare for the future, because we're preparing for the future. So
and think about what does the market look like in the next year. We're in an election year. Right? What's what's going to be happening here? What is consumer demand going to be coming through election year and going in? I mean, we may or may not have a new president in the White House next year. So what does that look like? What does consumer demand look like? So we got to think about that as well. So
that's true. That's a good point. So Mickey, you recently were appointed as the chairman of the Global Cold Chain Foundation.
Yes.
So why don't you give us a quick overview of what you do and what that organization represents?
Right. GCCF, the Global Cold Chain Foundation, is an association that's affiliated with the Global Cold Chain Alliance, the GCCA. And basically what the GCCA is, it's an association of public refrigerated warehouses. So the Americolds, the Lineages, the Interstates, the NORAMs, all of your PRW providers are part of this this association. And GCCA does many things as far as advocacy, brand awareness for our industry. And education is one of the big ones that falls under the foundation. The foundation is a 501c3.
Okay.
So it's more of the foundation type things and charitable things that they do from that side. And one of them, to your point, is training and education. They have a program that they do every year. It's called the Cold Chain Institute.
Formerly the WFLO.
Formerly WFLO, formerly TRRF, formerly all these things.
We all teach
depending on how long you've been around. Ray, if you're watching, you know these. So this program brings in, I would say, middle management type level, leaders of the future. So that in the U.S., they hold 2 of them in the U.S. They hold one in Atlanta. This usually happens January, February, one in Atlanta, and then a West Coast program out in Phoenix. So one of the things as chairman I want to focus on this year is taking a holistic look at the Foundation's Institute program and kind of the curriculum around that. The curriculum hasn't been revisited in numerous years. And there's so many more things that we have to learn. You and I were talking about, data-driven decision making. We didn't really talk about cybersecurity, but like cybersecurity, efficient warehouse design, leadership, things. So
refrigeration, how we think about, proper storage.
Logistics, all those things, which is covered, but is it covered for that
comprehensively?
Comprehensively, and that next generation of leader? There's a lot of PowerPoints and those things. So we're looking at that and hoping to launch our new curriculum next year. As chairman, I get the opportunity to travel to a few different institutes. So we don't only do the institute here in the U.S. We have institute in Latin America. So Mexico City, there's an institute. 2 years ago, we launched institute in Australia. And this year, we are launching institute in South America, in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and then also in Europe. So a lot is going on with the Institute. And then also on the Foundation side is international projects. So we've got a great team of Amanda Brondi and Madison Jacko who travel the world with the help of our members and kind of go look at emerging markets and how we can help emerging markets in developing the cold chain, which is so important. We take it, we take it for granted here in the U.S. because we have such a great cold chain, but there's so much going on around the world, and how can we help promote the cold chain?
Right, and build that infrastructure, things like that. That's great.
So I'm really excited. A lot of things going on there. So, it's I talk about I'm honored to be in this position because of, many of my predecessors that were in, the names of Dave Harlan and Jerome Shearer and Chuck Toogood, from U.S. Cold Storage that represented us. I'm honored to represent U.S. Cold Storage as a chairman. So
well, we're honored. We're honored to support you, and and I think when you think about it, you're really building the future leaders of the supply chain, of the cold chain. So I think that's very honorable and very noble. And so we're very proud of you.
And that's one of the things we're trying to do, that next generation leader. How do we bring that next generation leaders, into the industry and,
we're work together. We're a 125-year-old company, and we're trying to stay that way for the next 125 years. So we have to build out these capabilities. Well, that is a wrap for today. I enjoyed talking with Mickey Hoffmann.
I enjoyed being here.
He's the Executive Vice President of Commercial Strategy and Development. We talked about all things supply chain, so what the future looks like, what we have going on in 2024, how we think about this industry, our customers, customer service, all the different things in the future that we're preparing for. So I want to thank you for sitting down with me today. Finally,
thank you for having me. I was so excited. Can
I
tell you how nervous I was? I thought you were going to drill me with all these difficult questions.
Did you?
I did.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and stay cool.
Great.